Hey, and welcome back. Chris Garlock here with the latest commentary from Michael Redmond. Good morning, Michael.
Morning.
All right. We want to make sure that I saw your dog there earlier. Make sure you
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
uh, you bring your dog in at some point in the
Oh,
video. The
sure. Yeah,
dog the
yeah.
dog is very
He's right here.
popular. So all right.
Yeah.
But I guess we maybe we want to talk about Game 7 here of the AlphaGo
Yeah.
AlphaGo series. I know you've been studying it deeply. What's the main takeaway for this game?
Well, we're going to see one of the more modern versions of the AlphaGo 3-3 Invasion Joseki.
Okay.
And also before that, White's going to be playing some Go Seigen-like stuff. and then there's a big white moyo and a fight in the center. So that's the kind of game it's going to be.
I like the moyo game. All right, let's dive right in. Let's take us away.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. So this is an opening that AlphaGo is playing around with a little bit. Apparently, it has a lot of choices at this point. Like there's this move, which this is what it played when it was in the master version once, but it hasn't played this shimari in combination with the approach move on the left as the kache version. It hasn't played it that I've seen. That is,
Okay.
it plays the shimari but without the kakari usually. And it's played this version of the Chinese opening, and it's played this version of the Chinese opening. So it plays these two versions of the Chinese opening, 2 or 3 games each. In the SDF file, I actually counted and put a number in, but it's something like 2 or 3 games each. And in this game, it's playing the shimari here, and it did this in 2 games also. And so the fact that it's playing a number of moves at this point sort of indicates that it's a position where AlphaGo doesn't really know what the best move is either. And so I'd really love to see those percentages, but they must be about the same, the winning percentage for each move. And so White plays a kakari. And so both times AlphaGo played this opening, the same thing happened. So this is sort of like it's a forced sequence here. Although you might find it looks a bit different, this is what AlphaGo does with White.
It's an AlphaGo Joseki.
It's it's a whole board. It's an opening. It's a whole board Joseki that AlphaGo plays. And I don't really know why, but in this game, we're going to see it working fairly well for White. And so this game is sort of an example of what White is trying to do. And then later in the series, if we get to it, there's going to be another game in which Black plays a different... Oh, I can show you that one too. In the other game, Black plays a honey on the top, and White plays a honey underneath. Locally, actually, this is looking like it's a slight gain for White, locally. But Black is getting that nice pincer on the right side, which is perfect. It's a pincer and it's an extension at the same time. And so this is the other way it happened. And so locally... Actually, the lower right corner looks like White has gained a little bit, but on the right side, Black has a nice position. So I guess it's about even. In this game, Black, in this position, Black just went straight down. So this is a safe move. And you can see now it looks like Go Seigen. This is where I was saying it was a Go Seigen-like move because Go Seigen would tell us to play the shoulder hit against a knight's move. So it's as if the 2 mark stones were the last 2 moves played.
Sure.
And then Go Seigen would sometimes tell us to extend, and then sometimes he would say you don't have to extend, you can play elsewhere. And so it's really interesting to see AlphaGo having the same options because occasionally it does extend, and it doesn't play the jump like this jump here. It doesn't play this game as much as Master. It doesn't play this move as much as Master did.
Right.
This was sort of automatic for Master. But now the kache version doesn't play it every time. It doesn't play it very much. And in this game, AlphaGo plays the attachment here. And this is a shape that, again, was suggested by Go Seigen. It's a kind of it's one way White can go about it. It's one thing that White can do because White's trying to force Black into an over-concentrated shape. And locally, White can still force with moves like this. But in this case, it's probably not so good for White to do that immediately because it really builds up Black's moyo on the lower side. So since since White needs this move on the right side, it's probably a good idea for White not playing this exchange yet, but just playing that move And later on, after having that stone in, maybe white's going to play this curl around here as the next move that white plays, the later part in the game. Then white would have more time to play an extra move on the lower side. And so white is just looking at those 3 stones, the 3 marked stones, as kikashi. And white doesn't care if black tries to kill them. Like, let's see. Yeah. I didn't put a variation in for black trying to kill. It's just sort of, it's really small for black to try to take any of these 3 stones because black has such a solid territory already. So black's not going to bother with them. And so I like the way white's played. And this is really, it's a good example of what white was trying to do with that attachment. Let's take another look at it. With that attachment here. This is what white was trying to do with this attachment. White was trying to force black into an over-concentrated shape. And so it's really good that AlphaGo allowed it to happen as black once because it's an example that we have. And again, you know, AlphaGo jumps into the 3-3 point.
Of course.
I'm going to stop talking about it very much. I still don't understand the invasion. And I think that although some people have had success with it, on the whole, humans still don't know how to use it.
Interesting.
And it's not working as well for human players as it is apparently for AlphaGo. And so it's sort of dying out in Japan at least. And there's just a limited number of players in China too who are still playing this invasion. Like Kache likes it, I think. But, you know.
Just a quick question on, I mean, this is typical in the Go world of you know, fads or fashions or trends, whatever you want to call them. What tends to happen with them? I mean, something obviously if it's successful catches on, but is there something where people will study it and really try and figure it out, or how does this sort of thing usually work?
Well, usually in this case it's sort of different because it's not that the Joseki itself is complicated and we have to dig into it.
Sure.
It's the fact that the end result is something that defies our knowledge. It's like it goes against the grain, and we have to change everything that happens after that to make it work. Like we have to treat that wall differently. And so the understanding hasn't caught up with the move maybe. And since AlphaGo is such a strong player, I sort of want to think that the moves it plays in the opening are good too. But those are the moves that they sometimes look bad, and it could be just because we don't understand.
Sure.
And so it's usually some complicated joseki, and we have to work out all the variations, and then we're ready to play it. But in this case, we can play it quite easily. But you know, Go theory says that it's a move you play. I've marked 2 points on the board. It's a move you play when there's 2 white stones at those points, and then you can
scoop it out.
Yeah, and so you're not supposed to play it when there's no stones in the area, and no one has a convincing argument for it to be good at this point.
Except AlphaGo.
It's up to AlphaGo. Maybe if we dig in, I think even if we looked at the network data, this is going to be a tough one because we already know the variations that AlphaGo likes to play, and we still don't really understand completely. So it's one of the difficult things about, and it'll be interesting to see. I think they are saying that AlphaGo is several variations ahead of the Kache version now.
Yeah.
I mean, several versions ahead. So it'll be interesting to see how that has stayed in AlphaGo. Like AlphaGo likes it so much that maybe it's still playing it, but we'll see.
So the DeepMind guys have your contact information for when they're ready to release the data, right? Just I know you keep dropping the hints. I want to be a little less cagey about it.
Well, I don't really have any hopes at this point, but maybe.
Hopes.
I think when they publish the data, they're going to do it in a fairly public way. It's not going to be. Unfortunately, they're not going to just give it to me.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, right?
Yeah, but they're going to. I don't know. Hopefully, they'll just give a bunch of data that they've worked. Maybe Fanhui has dug into it somehow, but we'll see. So white plays, this looks like it's sort of a covering on the wrong side because the left side is more important for white than the upper side.
Sure.
But the way AlphaGo plays it, it's going to turn around and turn into a wall on the left side of the board. So it's interesting that we'll be seeing that. This is the Joseki move that AlphaGo likes. Let's see. Okay, this is the move that doesn't play anymore. I'll just leave that for the SCF file. And so this is, up to this point, it's standard. So this is the most common Joseki for AlphaGo. And at this point, AlphaGo can play away, or locally, AlphaGo usually plays this move. And this is setting up the double Hanen. So this move works very well in this board position because white is trying to shut off the left side. And so black cuts. And now if white had played on the outside there, then maybe black would go after this one stone. And this would lose the left side for white. Locally, this is a good result for white because white has that ponnuki at A. The ponnuki on the upper side is going to control the whole upper side of the board. So as a wall goes, that's a beautiful wall that white has. So I sort of like this for white locally. But of course, white's wall is sort of pointed in the wrong direction. Yeah. So this is okay for black. So instead, white plays this move. This is now this is sort of, it was unusual in human play until AlphaGo started playing it. So this is something that was not unheard of, but it was something that most human players were not doing. Because usually when white plays this Joseki, white is trying to do something with the upper side. And we're seeing AlphaGo playing this way when it actually wants to take the left side. So the direction of play here is sort of different from what one would expect. Like what I'm saying is usually white makes the choice a few moves back. Usually white makes the choice with this move. Which side to cover, which side white wants to emphasize. But AlphaGo is actually making the choice later on, and white can make the choice after black cuts here. White can choose whether to cover on the right of that stone to emphasize the upper side, or play here, which is threatening to squeeze at the mark point, and that's something that AlphaGo never allows. So black's going to take the one stone, and the latter happens again. You see, black is not allowing white to squeeze there. Black answers when white crawls. So black just doesn't want white to play the Atari against the three stones because that would take away black's eye space and it would be bad shape for black. And I agree with that, basically. And so in this case, white can capture in a ladder. And we see that move that white played in the lower right is a ladder breaking move. And just because that area is such a strong area for black, there's no good ladder breaking move for black. So black just plays an extension. This doesn't have anything to do with the ladder. It's still a ladder. But of course white plays here anyway because that's an important point, building up the left side. So up to this point I think it's about even. I sort of like the way white is playing, like the moves white played in the lower right corner and the direction of white's wall in the upper left. It all seems to be coming together. But these moyo games are tricky. Like I would probably play a better game with black if I started playing at this position because the moves that black has to play are easier to find. At this position, for instance, I look at it and I have the feeling that this is a very important point.
I wanted to ask you about how far black could go there. Yeah,
this is about as far, and the fact that it's a ladder breaking move means white has to do something about that. And I think this is the best move. And black jumps out. And there's still some forcing moves against white's left side. So white's left side is pretty flat. And I think this is okay for black. I would be happy to play with black in this position.
Right.
It's probably about an even game. In the actual game, black plays this move, which we know AlphaGo really likes.
Sure.
And white covers. And I marked the sliding move. AlphaGo will not play the slide, so black plays this way. And we come up with a very unusual move for AlphaGo, like connecting here. is there's just one of these games in the 50 games in which white will play this solid connection. This used to be a joseki. It's pretty unusual for human players now too.
Just too slow.
Yeah, well, it's a weak move. It gives black this perfect shape on the lower side.
Right.
So even before AlphaGo was showing its other variations, which are also most of them josekis that humans have been playing. So it's nothing new really, except for one weird move that I'll talk about that when that happens.
Okay.
But usually AlphaGo is just agreeing with moves that have already been played by humans. And this is something that it doesn't usually do. But then this next move that white plays is sort of perfect. It's the way that AlphaGo handles the ladder nowadays, and it also works perfectly with white's moyo. So I'm going to add one more. I do want to talk about, this is where AlphaGo plays this move, which looks a bit too tight. But usually AlphaGo would be doing stuff like this.
Right.
And I wanted to talk about this because this is a joseki, and I'm saying that this is good for black. And some people get confused when I take a joseki and I say it's good for one side or the other, because it all depends on the context, of course. So locally it's a joseki, but there's that weakness at A. Black can actually jump in all the way to A because black has a strong grip in the corner and a potential connection underneath. And then also the move at white, B, has already reduced the value of the lower side. And so there's a slight waste in white's move at B, and the wall that white's just made. They're sort of redundant. And so there's these variables that make the joseki that we have here bad for white in this case. So that's why AlphaGo didn't do that. And I'm going to go ahead and take this position. I wanted to talk about this position too, because obviously the joseki is to play here. This is a position where the great player Kajiwara Takeo, the 9-dan, he was a famous player, and he invented a lot of new joseki. And so he would say that the Kitani students who took all the titles, all those great players, were just copying his new josekis, and they could beat him because they were better at the later parts of the game, maybe.
Is this the Kajiwara who was one of the three crows, or am I confused?
You're right.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was one of the older players when I became a pro. And he would leave this position as it was. Like he would say that black doesn't have to play this move. And I'm going to add a variation here. Like we could play this move again. And so this is another timing at which black could have done that. And Kajiwara would then play underneath here. Looks really weird to be playing on the first line, but actually it's a ko that, like, it's going to be really big if black can win this ko. Like if white plays here, then this is a serious ko, and white's going to be losing a lot if white loses the ko. And then if white plays safe and connects, then black can play here, and we can see black has a potential eye in the corner. So this group is actually pretty strong. And so Kajiwara was saying that black doesn't really lose very much by playing away and allowing white to get this safe, because black just connects underneath, and it depends on a ko. White can maybe win the ko if white has good ko threats, but then in this game it looks a bit difficult for white. And what's more, black can maybe afford to make a trade and sacrifice those stones if black loses the ko. Like it'll be a lot of white moves used to do that. And so this is a kind of a Kajiwara joseki that would work in this position. So this is another variation that I'm going to leave in there. But in the game, black just played the joseki and white played here. And this is sort of perfect with the moyo. It's a very nice moyo that white has on the left side, starting to look like about 40 points. And also it happens to be the move AlphaGo plays every time now. And that's why I have marks on the board, because humans would used to capture that stone. Right. Like the stone at A, humans would take it at B. And there's towards the upper side that gives white better thickness, so there's some reason to want to take the stone. But then as I was studying with Go Seigen, he would be suggesting moves like C for white instead of just capturing the one stone. He would be suggesting playing further out towards the center. And a lot of pros were doing that, especially after Go Seigen was suggesting that. And so that became the standard move. And actually, Master was playing that kind of shape a lot when it was handling ladders. But now AlphaGo is playing this. I don't know what to call the shape. It's two knights moves. It's the second knight move, sort of, from that capturing stone. And it's playing this shape when it wants to finish a ladder. It's doing it in a number of games. So this is maybe the first time we see it, but it's going to happen again. And it's closer to the center of the board, so it has more influence, you might say, outward towards the rest of the board. And it's working fairly well for AlphaGo. It's a move that I wouldn't have trouble. My tendency would be to play C, but I sort of like this move too. So it's a move I'd be willing to copy. Or mimic, you might say, yes. And black plays here, but white can handle that. And it looks like there's holes in white's position. Like there's that space between. Let's mark the space between the two white stones here, and there's some space here. But when black jumps into places like that, it's going to be a bad fight for black. Like there's so many white stones in the area that black's going to get into trouble if black's that greedy. And
I think that's an important point, especially for amateurs, because we look at those, and it looks there are obvious points where you can get in and mess around, but it's not that you can get in, it's what's going to happen to you after you get in.
Definitely, yeah. It's going to be bad for black. So black's not going to do that. And black plays here. This is good. And white plays one. It looks like white's trying to save the two stones, but actually white's just playing that one move there. And now white plays here. Now locally, this is really neat. White sort of threatening the opening there on the right. But black counters with this move, which is also a nice move. This is threatening the marked point on the left, maybe. And so this is where the fighting starts. They're both trying to outdo each other and moving out into the center. And so now, this is really exciting. And it's really hard to judge. Like, there's a question of whether black plays on this side or that side. And there's all these fights that could happen, like after white cuts here.
I assume this is all in the SGF.
It's all in the SGF. I might just do maybe one variation, like there's this one. This is an example of what black should not do. Like when you're crosscut like this, the rule of thumb is to play an extension. So this is one thing that sort of springs to mind, but it happens with these extra white stones in the area that black can do. White can do this, and this is going to be trouble for black because white has so many stones in the area that it sort of turns around. Those extra marked stones that white had were making the local fight difficult enough for black that by the time we realize what's going on, it's the black group that's in trouble. And black didn't get very much territory for it. So this is an example of what black should not do. There's other moves, like there's this one, which becomes like the game was. And there's this one, which would be a different trade. Actually, black could have played this one. It would. Why don't we go into this one a little bit? Like, I can't resist. It would be more like this. And it would be, black would be getting some territory on the lower side. But white would have a forcing move at A still, and would then sort of switch to the right side. And something like this might happen. And it would be a fairly close game, but we can see that white has sort of reinforced the left side territory. It's turning into a territory now, so that's about 40 points. Black has a nice territory in the lower right, so this would be a more peaceful game. But black didn't choose to play that way. Instead, black plays the hane. White plays here anyway, and so again we have this variation. And white is sort of trying to live on the lower side. So black could allow that by playing here. This is what I think is good for black. This is my suggested variation for black. White will be able to play here, and here it's easy for white to live. Black reduces the left side a little bit, so that's less than 40 points now, and has a nice position in the center. So I think this is going to be a close game. So if black loses with this variation, I would say that would be because black is bad already.
Right.
So this would be the default variation for me. Black actually plays very strongly here, but this is going to get black into trouble in the center. And it's really the way white handles this is an example of how to use aji. We're going to see all sorts of stuff happening on the right side, on the lower side. Black plays out and here. So now there's the question of how does white close black in the lower left corner, because it looks a bit troublesome. So white plays here first, and there's a multi-purpose for this move. It's creating some co-threats, for one thing. And it's also setting up to squeeze black. So black plays here, and it's a dangerous move for black to be answering, because it looks like white's doing all these strange things inside black's territory, right?
Yeah, it does.
But if black just goes for the one stone, this is going to be really bad because white runs out here. And black doesn't really want to throw away those 3 key stones there, does he?
No.
So black plays here, and white gets to squeeze. And white's going to lose this semi, but capture the keystones after all.
Nice.
So this is one example of what
very cool.
And so black has to be careful here when white plays. It looks strange, but black has to keep the stones in Atari. Now this is going to be okay for black. Now white has this huge co-threat there, and so white can play here. And the point here is that black's natural move is to play the hane here, and white has trouble stopping that. But in this case, white can just play here, and has a co-threat for this ko. So white can play the ko-threat here. And, the ko is pretty serious for black, too. So black connects, and white just plays the squeeze here, and then pushes through. This is going to be bad for black. I've marked A. That's another forcing move that white has. And so the fight in the center is just going to be bad for black. Basically, it's okay for white if white can win the ko once, forcing black to connect in the corner. And so that's part of the reason for all this stuff that white's doing on the right here. But it's only half of it, because also white is getting this squeeze here, strengthening white in the center. And you can see white did it with perfect timing just before white escapes out to the left. Because, playing this exchange here, it takes away white's eye space on the lower side. So white has to do it with good timing. So white does it just before white plays this move to escape. And so we're left with a weak black group. But AlphaGo is sort of used to that kind of thing. Like it plays this way. I'd be sort of afraid at this point of maybe white playing something on the outside. But when I look at it, black is putting a little bit of pressure on white on the left here. And is connected up there in the center. And so black sort of has an eye there. Black has an eye on the left side and can continue with something like this. It looks like black should be able to live. Assuming black does live, this is going to be really bad for white because white's lost a lot of territory on the left.
And the whole side is evaporated.
It's evaporated, right. So white answers that. And so that was okay. And so it turns out black is okay in the center. But at this point, white has a lead. White has played very cleverly on the lower side. And I think this is a point where white took the lead, but it's going to turn into a half point. And in this game, I sort of have an idea of where that happened.
Okay.
But at this, we're still seeing very good play on both sides. This move is a move that really looks weird at first. Like it's bad shape if you look at it from the point of view of the right side. It just has a hole in it, right?
Yeah, totally.
So why did white play here? White needs white's surrounding territory in the center, while actually that center white group is not so strong. White's thinking of that center group as a weak group. So white's protecting the weak group by making a big territory. So that's something a strong player does. It's a natural thing to do. When you protect your group, you like to make eyes. And it's ideal if you can do that while making some territory at the same time.
Sure.
So why is it a weak group is this variation that I've put in. Black can peep here. Black can peep here. So black has these two forcing moves if white just leaves it. Black can peep once more here, and suddenly it looks like a weak group. Like there's no eyes.
No eyes, yeah.
Yeah, and black's leaning on white on the right side, and so that white group is going to be isolated pretty soon. And doesn't even have one eye. There's no eyes for it at all. So white's going to struggle in the center now. So this is an example of what white should not do. And it's that variation I put in, I think it really explains the value of this move. Because although white's losing some points on the right side, white has something that looks like more than 10 points in the center already. So black and all of white's stones are connected. And so in this case, the center was really valuable. And that's something that was not apparent to me until I really studied it pretty deeply. So it was something that I gained from this game. And so now this is a nice move. It's a standard squeezing strategy. Like if black plays here, white's going to lose the semi-eye. Black has one extra liberty, so black's going to win the semi-eye, but white gets some extra thickness there with all those forcing moves on the outside. So this is not a loss for white. Maybe I would have played this way with black, because it does give black more territory, but it's sort of hard to say. It's like pulling back here it's a reasonable move. So I'm not going to say that was bad for black. It was less territory for black, but it was a more solid way. And there's more potential for black now. And so black covers here. We're told that this is sort of like a handicap joseki, and it's a timid move that you're not supposed to play. This board position is sort of an example of when you should play this move, because if black plays strongly here, it's going to be very bad for that black group in the upper right corner. Like that's a weak group, and all of white's surrounding stones are connected. So this is a position where black has to play defensively. Okay. Oh yeah, we have a dog.
There's the dog.
Yeah. Hey, you were reminding me I had to show him, and I think he's sort of getting ready to get off my lap. So I'm going to show you Choco.
Choco.
He's not really a Go fan. Sometimes he sleeps on Go boards.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that was Choco.
The Choco Tsuji.
Yeah. He can sleep on a Go book. He looks like he's reading a Go book if we put a Go book down. Yeah.
I totally get it. I sleep on Go books all the time. I don't. That is to say, they put me to sleep, but that's not their fault. That's totally me.
So this is an example where black should be playing this because black's not so strong, and also there's a kind of a general rule that as the game approaches the end game, these relatively small territories in the corner, there's a tendency that they get to be more important. So it's in all sorts of games, there's a lot of cases. Oh, he wants to come back up again.
I think he's interested in this game. I'm going to call this the Choco game.
Okay. So there are many cases when it's good to be surrounding the territory with this joseki if it's late in the game. And if it's late in the game, like like in this case, most of the white stones are settled already. So black would not have much potential to attack white and stuff like that. And so territory gets to be more important towards the end of the game.
Okay.
And then white plays here. White's attacking the black root. Black is actually connected up there. And now white plays this move. This is the Tsuji move in this position. It's the shape move, but it's also the move that I think turned this game into a half-point difference because, and in this case, I'm not going to accuse AlphaGo of playing with the score because AlphaGo actually has a tendency to play the good Tsuji move when it's given a choice.
Okay.
And saying that, I'm going to suggest the vulgar move, which is this one. This is a forcing move. And white can just push along the fourth line here. In this case, it's very effective because black cannot break into this white territory. Black has to protect the cut underneath, and white gets to surround something close to 20 points.
That's a lot of
points. It's almost 20 points. It's a big territory there. Black only got a few points on the upper side in return. And this would be a safe. It'd be what I call a safe win for white. It would be a bigger win for white. And yeah, so white would be winning still on komi, but it would be a number of points. It would be a lot more than it was in the game. And so this is my winning variation. And what AlphaGo did in the game is actually better Suji. And AlphaGo has a tendency to, when it makes a mistake, or what I would call a mistake, it tends to be playing the good Suji move. So it's actually something that you can learn from anyway. But in this case, it allowed black to break into the center like this. This is the trade that usually happens with that move. And so black gets to break into the center, white gets something on the right side. It's a trade, but actually you're going to see this center territory turn into a lot of dame points. Wow. So the whole center it's already in jeopardy, the whole center area. And black has most of the corner territory anyway. So it's just those few points white got on the upper side. And after this, it's a very close game. And I have trouble judging it.
I'm having trouble understanding why white would. I mean, white's got the vulgar but effective, couple of moves that get to 20 points straight up. I mean, what's? I mean, the other move is nice, but
it's nice. Like this is gonna. I think it. I'd have to really be playing with the networks to know. But I have the feeling that the policy network has a strong bias towards the good Suji moves, and that would make sense because they're the moves that usually work. They have a high percentage.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's not even looking at this move. It really is a vulgar move. It's sort of ordering black to play the connection, and usually this kind of move is just not. There's a tendency for this kind of move, forcing your opponent to play somewhere. It's pretty vulgar. It's not good usually, but in this case, sometimes in the end game it's good.
No, I just wanted you to define vulgar for folks. I think it can be.
That's it's
vulgar is often just a move that that my opponent makes that I don't like, right? So that's vulgar.
Right. Yeah. Usually like this move, you're giving your opponent a choice, and like if you're gonna move to the right like this, then I get more on the left. But if you move to the left here, I'm going to get more on the right. Now white's going to play here. This is better than the previous diagram. And so usually you're playing a kind of in-between move like this, and whichever way your opponent plays, you're going to get something on the other side. So you're giving your opponent a choice, and it's a tough choice for your opponent. So this is a kind of a classy move that a pro likes. While this kind of move is just saying, it's giving an order. It's saying you have to play on the third line, and usually it's giving black more profit. As a general rule, it's giving black more than it's giving white. But in this case, it just happens to work. And this kind of move that we call vulgar is, in the end game, there's a higher percentage of success for it, because sometimes you just have to fix the shape in the end game. Sometimes that's more important. So that's my attempt to describe vulgar.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to
define. It's a difficult concept.
Yeah, and so white had this, and so now we're going to see the whole center territory disappear. This move that white played, this is a big move too, so that's okay. But this is a peep, white has to answer that, and the whole point is that all of these white stones don't have eyes anymore.
Yeah.
So white has to worry about eye space, and is sort of on the defensive here. And so black's pushing white around. Like white had to live on the right side. Black plays here.
It's just so painful.
The whole center here, there's nothing left. And white has to worry about the whole center group. So white's going to play this on the upper side. White's making eyes. Oh yeah, I should show you this variation. It looks like white can cut black here.
Right.
But that doesn't work because black can just wedge here, and the cut is tente. So this would be very bad for white. Yeah. So that shape there is actually on the upper side. Black's connected. So with this move, white is just forcing black to connect up while securing some eyes on the upper side. So white gets, with this, white has a living shape. So white had to answer all of those moves. So black has reduced the center territory to nothing with Sente. So if I was playing a game and I was in second reading or overtime, and I didn't have time to judge the score or anything,
You'd play the vulgar move.
I'd play the vulgar move also. But if I was with black, at this point I would think, wow, I've gained so much here.
Yeah.
I must be winning.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be my gut feeling.
But you're going to tell me that's
wrong.
Not the truth, right?
It's not the truth. It's a half point.
No kidding.
Yeah, I can try to figure it out, and I get a lot of half point variations. And at this point of the game, I still don't really know. But I have the feeling that white is winning by half a point.
Wow.
And we're going to see black make it exciting now. So this is the last chance really for a kind of a calm end game. But now we have a ko coming up. So this is going to make it confusing. Ultimately, I think this ko, both players played ko threat that lost 2 points. So they traded off 2 point losing ko threats. And so it evened out. And the ko evened out too. So this ended up being the same thing as if black had just connected on the second line at this point. So I think black is sort of struggling, trying to turn the game over at this point. So at this point, it's already a half point. I was showing you that vulgar variation where white would be winning by several more points, like something like 3.5, 4.5 points, I think. But it gets exciting. There's this ko here on the left side. This is actually a threatening white's group in the center. Like if white plays away, now this is just cut off.
Oh dear.
Yeah. This is like white can. I've shown that white can live, but of course it's bad for white because white loses all those stones on the right. And so black is looking to cut white off with this move. Like if white answers on this side, then it's going to get cut off anyway. So this is going to be bad for white. So white answers that. And we have this little sequence in the center where black just takes away the rest of white's territory. And the ko resumes. And so we have this ko fight happening. Now this is white's mistake. Well, it's not a mistake. White's sort of low in ko threats for one thing. And also, if white gets to play the follow-up move at B, white cuts at A and plays the follow-up move at B, it would become a normal endgame sequence. So if white plays next in that area, it's going to be okay. But if black plays at B, that's just going to be 2 point loss for white. So that's where white lost 2 points, potentially. Well, that's how it's going to turn out. But black's going to run out of ko threats too. And we have this happening. Let's just take the ko a bit further. And there's this move. Now this is losing 2 points because assuming there's no ko concerned, then the way black plays here is to play entirely against 2 stones. White connects. So this is the end game sequence. And we can see that white's territory is...
Oh, nice. Yeah.
In the game, black plays inside white's territory and allows white to take it. So that's 2 extra points. I might as well mark the 2 points that white has gained. There's a point here that wasn't there before, and there's a point where white captures the 1 stone. That's going to be squeezed, so it's just 1 point.
Right.
So white's gained 2 points here, and black has potentially gained 2 points with white's cut at B. So, so it's an even trade. I mean, yeah, well, they both needed ko threats, so I guess that was the story. And so now white, this is sort of giving up the ko, erasing any ko threats black might have in that area, you might say, and just sort of waiting to see what black does next. Like if black is going to be greedy on the left side, now I would assume white's going to try to win the ko. But instead black plays once here and then finishes the ko. So this is ended up fairly peacefully. And the rest of the end game is fairly straightforward. Like black plays here and this is really big. This is the next big move. And this is sort of strange, but it's interesting, this move, in that let's just it has to do with white's eyes for one thing, but also like if black plays some other random move here, then when white plays the Hanesugi here, we can see that there's a ko there that could reduce black's territory. So by playing this move, it has the effect that white plays here to get some extra eye space, and it solves that problem for black on the right there, because now that ko has lost its value, and so there's a slight gain on the right, a slight loss on the left. It evens out. As far as I can tell, white's winning by half a point anyway, and so the game continues. And as always, AlphaGo is going to end it with a resignation. But they're playing. They're not making any mistakes in the end game, as far as I can tell. And this is about it. White plays here, and black resigns. So I finished the end game actually. Like this would happen, and black can make an eye here, and that would be the final 2 points. And I guess I had black. Yeah, black wins the ko. And so in this case, white will fill the final dame and win by 1/4 of a stone. Or in Japanese rules, it's one half of a point.
You're saying though that half-point result has been there for quite a while.
Well, ever since I suggested a different variation, like it was this move, I think. Let's see if I can find the move. This move.
Yeah.
After this move, as far as I can tell, it was a half point. Like it's way before I'm comfortable with judging the position. But the way AlphaGo is playing it out seems fairly reasonable. And every time I try to work it out, it's a half-point difference. So this would be a bit more. This would be a bit more of a win for white. I didn't really count it to the final point, but it's a few points on the board.
Just a point here, though, not only just in terms of points, but because once black gets in there, then white has to have, it causes all kinds of problems. That
with white's eyes, white has to make that territory on the upper side. It's maybe not as bad as it seems, because at this point of the game, after all this stuff that happens, it turns out that the upper side is the next big place at this point. It's the next big end game.
Okay.
And so it's although it's sort of painful to be forced to make a life, this is a point of the game where the upper side it's worth it in territory. So white was forced to play those defensive moves there, but it is making something like 8 points on the upper side, so it's worth it. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that occurs to me is that a human consideration would be having to do all of those calculations, and obviously for a top pro, much less of a problem. But potentially under time pressure. I'd be
really upset with white if this happened. Like it was such a nice looking white territory in the center there.
Yeah.
And it's all gone. And so clearly white has lost a lot, but exactly how much is actually pretty hard to say. But that variation I was showing is such a clear. It's just a clear-cut victory for white. I'm pretty comfortable saying that this is going to be a win for white after Komi, that is.
It's so much simpler.
Just so simpler, and it's so efficient to have that white territory in a group that, as we have seen, is not so strong. There's some weakness there. Yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Just wanted to check in real quick. I know you've been doing a lot of work on these games. Tournament-wise for you, where are you at?
Well, last week I played Kyo Kagen, who is one of the top young players. He's fought for a title, so he's really tough. and I had a good opening, but I messed it up pretty quickly. I played an overplay in the middle game. I was feeling like I was emulating AlphaGo pretty well in the opening, actually. But
cool.
And I thought of doing a video on that game, actually.
Yeah.
But my mistake in the early middle game was pretty devastating.
Okay.
And it sort of takes the interest out of the rest of the game. Like the opening moves are interesting. Mm-hmm. And I think I did a good job of using some of the stuff I've learned studying AlphaGo.
Right.
But then I played this one move sort of destroys the interest of the rest of the game.
Well, we could look at the game and that's just sort of, pretend that other move didn't happen. Just look at the beginning part that's interesting.
Yeah, it would be one of my shorter videos. I could do that. Yeah.
All right. Well, something to look forward to. Well, great commentary as always. We're getting lots of good feedback. We'll maybe think about I've got to take a look at some of the comments, and maybe we'll do a video where we answer some of the comments. I just need to get some time to go through those. But as always, thanks so much, Michael Redmond, 9 Down Professional, for the commentary. And thanks to all of you for watching. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.